another Geno 3 podcast with your host, Andy. This week, I am joined by Kirsty, one of our co-founders and nutritionist. Kirsty, how are you?
I'm really good. I'm ready to get started.
Excellent. So this week we're going to be talking all things pesticides. But just before we get into that, to find out a bit more information, I've got our medical disclaimer. So the content provided in this pod and our other pods is really for information purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. So, Kirsty, I'm just going to kind of hand over to you. And I suppose the big first question really I have for you is, why are we talking about pesticides today?
Well, I wanted to highlight a little bit about this topic because it impacts the majority. It will impact the majority of our listeners, even if they don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us will have some form of contact with pesticides on a fairly regular basis.
Okay.
And before I get started into the detail of the pod, I thought I would quickly just tell you what they are and where it all fits in with Geno 3. So pesticides are chemicals commonly used on crops to protect them from pests such as weeds. And they're also common, a lot of people will know them as weed killer. People use them in their gardens at home.
Bugs and stuff like that as well.
Yeah. So our where that fits in the Geno 3 test is it looks at how your body handles. Our test looks at how your body handles 3 specific types of these pesticide chemicals, and you'll find that within the toxin sensitivity chapter within your Geno 3 report. And just for context, there are 17 toxins that we cover in that chapter. So there's more than just the 3 pesticides. And we can maybe do another pod on those ones, but this is specifically for the pesticide ones. So our DNA test will show whether you have you're more or less sensitive to these, to the pesticides. And if you are more sensitive, we will give practical tips on how to help support your body's detox pathways, so you can better manage if you have exposure, which is highly likely for everybody. And, well, as I said, just there, it's useful for everyone, this, because it's only a good thing if you can think of some strategies to help reduce exposure, which we are all exposed to pesticides, whether you like it or not, really.
The foods that we purchase and that sort of stuff. So.
Yeah, so I'm also going to talk about a specific gene today, and we don't normally name them because it can get a bit scientific and people can maybe find it a bit much, but I need to name it. So it's called PON1, and I'm going to really try and simplify it so that it's easy to understand as best I can.
Okay. So can you give me a little bit more on what pesticides are used for then? Obviously it's to prevent crops being impacted, I suppose, but is there anything else in addition to that?
So, well, really, they're substances used to protect plants and crops by killing or controlling things that harm them, like insects or weeds or fungus. They help farmers grow more food by keeping all of these harmful things at bay. And they come in lots of forms, such as sprays and powders, and they're made to target specific pests. So while they can help grow lots of food and crops and protect them, they can also affect people and the environment. So they are carefully regulated in the UK and the US. I know I've looked into that as well. So that's why they're regulated, because of the potential harm.
So how do people come into contact with them? Obviously, these foods are grown by farmers, which then supplies the food chain, and then it goes into supermarkets and shops and stuff. So is that the kind of main way that we come into contact? Obviously, people handling the chemicals will be administering them, they'll be exposed to them as well, I suppose. But
yeah, I think it's important just to quickly cover that, because people might not think ways that they come in contact. So the most common are through the skin, when you're handling or touching the treated plants or foods or the surfaces, or by breathing in the sprays that are airborne particles from when they're sprayed. Eating the food is a common one, or drinking water that contains the pesticide residues. It can happen directly. So, for example, if somebody is in the field that they're spraying, you're going to be directly hit with that.
Yeah.
Or it can happen indirectly through pesticide drift. So if it's in the air, maybe if you're out a walk and there's spraying going on in the fields nearby and you don't know, you could indirectly get exposed to it. And also through eating the food. People can also become exposed in their gardens at home, all the same sort of stuff, just on a smaller scale. So that's kind of the majority, but the eating one is the sort of biggie, I would say.
So are they harmful?
So yes, they can harm human health. There's quite a lot of strong scientific studies that back this. Short-term exposure can cause things like skin irritation, nausea, dizziness. Long-term is linked to things, serious issues like cancer, Parkinson's disease, developmental problems in children. Obviously, these effects are especially seen in people with like high exposure, for example, farm workers. So the short answer is yes, they are harmful. In larger quantities, it's going to cause more harm.
Okay. So what's been done then? Obviously, you've undertaken a bit of research into this. Kind of where have you found this information that says that things are out there being done to protect people, I suppose, from these chemicals?
Yeah. So in the UK, the UK limits pesticide residues on food through strict maximum residue levels. These are normally regularly tested to ensure safety, and they promote safer pesticide use with plans to reduce overall use by 10% by 2030. So that's the UK stance on it. The US stance, they also regulate pesticide use by approving products, setting maximum residue limits on food and conducting routine testing to protect public health. So there's things being done in these two countries with the maximum residue levels. There's regular tests, so they check that. So when we are consuming it or when we are getting it, they've set the level that they deem as safe,
acceptable,
and acceptable. But my stance is, if this has been proven to cause harm in the bigger quantities, let's just look at ways that we can support people in opening up their detox pathways and things.
Okay. So suppose that kind of brings into the question, you alluded to at the start, that and the PON1 specifically, but why are our genes important, specifically the PON1, in this kind of context of what we're chatting about today?
Right. So this is the bit that's a wee bit, you're going to have to get your brain thinking, right? So put simply, PON1, the PON1 gene makes an enzyme that helps break down and clear the pesticide chemicals from your system, right?
Okay.
That's what that gene does. People have different versions of PON1, right?
Okay.
Of that gene. And some may process the pesticides more effectively, some less effectively. And that can impact how the body responds to exposure to that pesticide. So if you have a weaker version or a variant in that gene that's weaker, that means less protection and a higher chance of inflammation or other health issues when you are exposed. And just a quick reminder, those that have their Geno 3 report, this is in your toxin sensitivity chapter. And if you have a high or medium sensitivity to organochlorines or organophosphate, then you will have the variant of PON1, and that's the gene that processes that's the gene that, if you've got that, then you will process pesticides in your system less effectively. So in a nutshell, that's as simple as I can make it.
That's perfectly understandable, I think, which is good. It's kind of easy to kind of take on.
Yeah. So as I said, the variant, if you've got a PON1 variant that's weak, your body will not.
It's more susceptible to.
it's going to
Negative
hold
effect.
on to the pesticides in your system for longer, which can cause a number of issues.
Okay. So suppose we kind of about the studies that back that up. Obviously, it's great that we're having this conversation to kind of put it maybe at the forefront of people's thinking a little bit more around pesticides. But can you tell us a bit more about the studies that you've kind of looked into related to PON1?
Yeah, I've got two. I wanted to just put these in just to highlight that sort of important bit about, the genetic side and what we do and the tests that we do, just to highlight, how different it can be for somebody who has the weaker variant. So there's one study that I found. It was 2020, led by ComSat's University Islamabad,
Mm-hmm.
and they worked alongside their partners in Cameroon and Czech Republic. Now, they examined 637 people who were exposed to pesticides,
Mm-hmm.
and they found that people with the certain PON1 variant had lower activity of the PON1 enzyme, so they've got the weaker one. The
Mm-hmm.
certain people with the weaker one, those with the lower enzyme activity, so those with the weaker one, had higher levels of inflammation in their blood, and inflammation happens when the enzyme is less active and the body's detox process slows down. So
Mm-hmm.
therefore you're allowing the harmful pesticide chemicals to build up and trigger inflammation in the body. So that study showed the genetic differences between those that had the weaker variant and those who didn't, and the weaker
Mm-hmm.
variant ones had the inflammation.
And were
Um,
they people working with the chemicals, or were they people just,
farm
yeah.
sort of farm workers. So it was sort of reliable, high level exposure. So it's worth
Mm-hmm.
noting that, because it wasn't just through maybe a little bit of eating.
Yeah.
But as I always say with studies, more studies required, more studies would help back that up. But
Mm-hmm.
that's quite a big sort of study that
It's a big
shows a
sample group.
direct, those with the weaker variant had the higher inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that study, and then I looked at another study that was done in 2017, and this was by the University of California, and they followed 246 people with Parkinson's disease,
Mm-hmm.
and they found those with the weaker version of PON1, they experienced faster worsening movement, thinking, and mood symptoms if they were exposed to pesticides.
Okay.
And this is because, as I've said before, people with that gene variant have lower activity of the enzyme, which means their body detoxifies pesticides less effectively. So,
Mm-hmm.
therefore, the harmful chemicals stay in the body for longer, which caused faster disease progression.
Okay.
So, interesting there. I mean, there's people with a disease,
Mm-hmm.
and
Quite a
the
significant one as well.
another significant one, and like there was so many that I could have picked, I could have looked at, but those were the two. There's other studies that show links to cardiovascular disease, some cancers, thyroid disease
Mm-hmm.
can also be affected, but we've just not got time to go into all these areas. But
Yeah.
interesting that we've got two human studies that show the impact of pesticides on the body with that weaker variant of PON1,
Mm-hmm.
which
Okay.
really is so interesting.
It's quite eye
And
opening in there.
yeah, exactly. When you start going down this rabbit hole, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, whoa, that's interesting.
Because we think we all know, just as a general rule of thumb, that pesticides, chemicals on foods and things aren't generally a good thing. Obviously, there's the kind of protective aspect of it from a farming, so they're able to kind of harvest as much as they possibly can and protect it for as long as they can. But obviously, us ingesting chemicals on a regular basis through foods is probably never going to be a good thing. But as people who are much more aware, as you say, of that PON1, particularly the kind of the weaker end of that, being able to kind of their body to be able to deal with that, is people need to be aware of that, and it can have much more of a significant impact on them. So I suppose what people may be thinking about then is, what can people do to reduce their exposure?
So to reduce exposure, those that haven't done the test, worth noting, this is all things that anyone can do. But as I
Hmm.
said, those that have done the test, and if you know, then it's even more important. So
Yeah.
tips to reduce: buy organic and local if possible or where possible.
Hmm.
Choosing organic versions, especially those on the Dirty Dozen list, which we'll talk about later. Buying from local farmers markets can also mean it can be fresher as well. With
Supports
fewer
local
pesticides.
business as well, I suppose.
Yeah, so organic, great. I know that cost is an issue for some
Mm-hmm.
people, so that's something to think about. But when we talk about the dirty dozen, that'll help with that. Wash the stuff. Wash your produce thoroughly. Rinse fruit and veg under running water and really scrub firmly,
Mm-hmm.
right? And not just a rinse. Give it a good scrub, especially those items that are on the dirty dozen list as well, which we'll talk about. Leafy greens rinse well,
Mm-hmm.
as well. There's some fruit and veg that might have a thicker skin, like melon or avocado may not have as much pesticide residue, but there might still be some inside. So
Mm-hmm.
there's choices you can make where there's a thicker skin. It might have a little bit less because the skin protects the flesh a bit.
So it wouldn't kind of penetrate that as much as it would the
Yeah,
softer
I
fruits
can't.
and
Yeah,
leafy veg and stuff.
yeah. So you can make choices if you can't afford organic or whatever. Maybe choose a thicker skinned fruit,
Mm-hmm.
which might have less pesticides in it. Know which foods have more pesticides. So things like berries, spinach, peppers, apples. Peeling some skin off fruit can help reduce pesticide intake as
Mm-hmm.
well. There's that sort of whole
What are
taking
the
the
big
skin
hitters
off.
for pesticides, would you say? Ones to kind of really look out for.
Well, we'll get on to it, Andy. You're
Okay,
jumping. You're
okay.
jumping
Jumping
here. We're
away.
going to get on to it.
What I was going to chuck in, just because I know that you do that, is growing your own veg as well. I suppose that would be having
That
if
was
you've
the
got the
next.
opportunity.
That was the next on my list.
Oh, there you
Mind
go.
readers, we know each other
That's
too
it.
well.
In sync.
Yeah, growing your own. Like even now, like I grow my own, and I don't even use chemical fertilizer on any of my stuff
Mm-hmm.
because it's chemicals. So I do it all very organic. I've got my own compost heap, and I
And you
use
notice the
that.
taste difference as well, eh? Like
Oh
it
yeah,
just
like
tastes so
carrots,
much
and
better.
yeah, it does taste better. And just giving it a wash from the soil
Mm-hmm.
and then eating it, it just feels better because I know that there's no chemical, there's nothing on it. That's
Mm-hmm.
hard though if you've not got time or space. It can be difficult. If you have, I only grew carrots this year, and then I might grow up another different. I was looking at peas or something next year, so it's a wee bit.
Mm-hmm.
Some people might want to do a wee experiment and try dipping their toe in the growing their own. So that's one. Avoiding pesticides in your gardens. At home, try. I know that that's hard because if you get weeds and things, it's so easy just to put a
Mm-hmm.
bit of weed killer down. But not great for the environment. Not great if you get it on your skin or your ingest, like sort of inhaling it as you're spraying, and
Mm-hmm.
not good for pets and stuff. So try and avoid. Practice good hygiene as well. So if you've been near places that have pesticides, in your
Get a good
garden, if you've
scrub.
been spraying, take your shoes off, wash your hands before eating and after gardening, or even handling your produce or any produce that you've brought home from the supermarket. Give your hands a
Mm-hmm.
good clean. If you're out and about and live near fields and there's spraying going on, get your windows shut. I was out, there's fields at the back where we live, and I was out with the dog, and I saw the spray, the tractor was coming down, and it had the big arms that they
Mm-hmm.
spray either side, and I saw it, clocked it, and I was like, roundabout turn, get out of here. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
get speed walking back because I thought I do not want to breathe that in.
No.
So, if you live in the country and you can see it, shut your windows, and
Mm-hmm.
then check out the Dirty Dozen. Check
So
that out.
this dirty dozen that's been mentioned a few times, and people are probably thinking, "What is the dirty dozen?" So tell us.
So it's an annual list of conventionally grown fruits and vegetables with the highest pesticide residues. So in the
Mm-hmm.
UK, it is published around December. So we'll be coming up for our next instalment. And
Mm-hmm.
it's published by the Pesticide Action Network. And in the US, it is released each June by the Environmental Working Group. This
Okay.
helps consumers decide which produce that they could maybe try and buy organic and help reduce their pesticide exposure. So the 2025, I'm only going to do the UK one,
Mm-hmm.
Dirty Dozen list: spinach,
Okay.
strawberries, kale, grapes, peaches, cherries, nectarines, pears, apples, blackberries, blueberries, potatoes. Surprised with that one.
Yeah.
And that's a staple in Scotland, isn't it? And
Well, it's
peppers.
tatty holidays now, is it no?
I don't know, is it? Yeah, I think maybe.
See a lot of
So,
tractors going about with potatoes. So.
so that's some like strawberries are and spinach.
Mm-hmm.
These are quite common. So if you're buying these, look for organic. If possible, if you can't afford it, give them a good wash, a good scrub down. Apples as well. Apples is surprising. We have apples every day.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like things like your grapes, that white residue that's on them.
Mm-hmm.
I always look at that and I'm like, oh, is that pesticides? Give them a good scrub, a good wash.
Yeah.
So that's the Dirty Dozen 2025. Well, it would have been if it was December.
Mm-hmm.
Might have been the
So is this a
2024.
website? It's on
If you just look up Pesticide Action Network Dirty Dozen
okay.
and it'll come up. It's a website. They've got loads of information if you want further information on pesticides and things.
Yeah, it's
So
just useful to know where people can kind of go for that kind of snapshot of info, because obviously it's great listening to this, but obviously we're discussing it and they're not seeing a visual sort of list of it, and it might be difficult to kind of remember that list that you've kind of sort of rattled off there. So yeah, that's perfect. Okay. So I suppose we're moving to the sort of end phase of this pod, and kind of looking at the sort of conclusion or summary, however you want to kind of describe it. So it's just kind of hitting home maybe some of those important points that you kind of want to make, just to kind of sort of wrap things up. And then if there's anything else coming up in the future that might be useful for our listeners to know.
Well, really, as I said, this isn't just a pod for people that have done the test. Everybody can take action and make changes to their washing, and just being, as I always say, mindful. Knowledge is power. So, some people might think, I don't want to know if I've got PON1, the weaker variant in that. It's good to know, because then you can make positive informed decisions. Or if you don't want to know, just wash your veg and fruit anyway and reduce that exposure. Obviously, it's worth noting that the exposure that we have through eating is a level that's been checked and is apparently safe by the government and things. So we're talking maybe smaller quantities, but to me, it's important that even small quantities.
I suppose it's the build up over time. Do you know what I mean? If people are consuming a lot of that,
and if people,
small amounts, but
that's the sort of more generic side. If people are PON1 weaker variants, then they're going to get more inflammation from maybe even a smaller amount compared to somebody that's not got that variant. So your risk might be slightly higher. So the government, or the sort of safe levels, is based on a standard. It's based on a standard population, or a standard. This is the standard, but they're not basing it on you as a person, a personal down to that level. So as I said, it's important, regardless of if you think, oh, it's only a wee bit. I don't want chemicals in my body. So I think, just even if you've not done the test, just take some of the tips that I've given and give it a wee try. The last thing I'm going to say before we wrap up, final little teaser for you. Look out on our socials in the next couple of weeks. There's going to be a little highlight of a really cool and good way to support your body's natural detox pathways that you can do anywhere, anytime. Right. Okay. So it's a good one. It's a really good one. So we'll give a little demo of something that you can do anywhere. Anywhere you are, you can do this to help support your detox pathways. And can I also add, if you do the test and you do have this variant, we've got lots of strategies to help with your diet and things and lifestyle changes. So it's not like, oh my goodness, I've got that, so if I eat that, I'm going to get inflammation. We've got lots and lots of support things to give you to help your body process all of these things. So it's not like a bad news. Yeah. It's all positive. Nobody's perfect, Andy.
No, that's true.
We've all
That's
got variants that
We're
aren't
all
as good,
unique.
and we've all got variants that are really good. So nobody's
Mhm.
perfect, but I just thought I would throw that in as well.
Brilliant. Perfect. So appreciate your time. And again, another really informative pod. And hopefully, um, with this stuff coming up soon, the wee teaser you've kind of given there, which is good, we'll give our listeners something else in addition to this. But thank you for sharing all that really valuable information. And hopefully, we're all a bit more informed now about pesticides. So thanks again, and we will catch up soon.
Thank you. Bye.